Oímos muy bien.
Ah, van a tener dos computadoras. Te veo en la
No,
pantalla, Elvira.
yo también te veo de
Ah,
vez en cuando. Nos vemos la pantalla grande. De pantalla a pantalla.
eso.
¿Te
Muy
das
bien.
cuenta? Qué lindo verte. Qué lindo es la vida. Se ve que hay gente.
Sí. A ver quién nos saluda el público. Hola.
Thank you for being here today. Thank you to Printed Matter for hosting us this weekend, to David Senior for inviting us to participate today, and Gladys, Avila, and Elise for the organization and help preparing for today. I would like to thank Max Jorge Hinderer Cruz and Elvira Espejo Ayca for joining us, Max from Miami and Elvira from La Paz, Bolivia. My name is Alejandra Salinas, and this is my partner, Aeron Bergman, and our daughter, Agnes Bergman Salinas. We are artists, curators, writers, professors, and together we co-direct INCA Press. INCA Press is a non-profit independent publisher of art and culture. INCA Press publishes experimental and contemporary art books, books as art, books on art, artist writings, and interdisciplinary inventions of poetics, politics, aesthetics, and hybrid forms. The goal of INCA Press is to support writing that is hard to house, that emerges from visual arts but eschews its traditional boundaries between categories of art making and discourse. Elvira Espejo Ayca, this is the new book that we are introducing today, is called KIRKI QHAñi, Container of Andean Poetics, is the remediation of ritual forms and oral traditions into a book form, an act of translation of song poetry rituals that Espejo Ayca learned in her Ailu, and concretely from her grandmother, Gregoria Mani Cirqui. Ailu is a word both in Aymara and Quechua, the indigenous languages of Bolivia. The word refers to a self-sufficient, self-governing traditional form of living, something between a village and a family unit, formed by reciprocal relations. Ailus existed as chains of communities stretching the entire length of the Andes, forming long before the Inca and holding strong even after the tragic arrival of the Spanish. KIRKI QHAñi, Container of Andean Poetics by Elvira Espejo Ayca, is a collection of essays and poems, songs, situating Aymara, ancestrality, and Andean poetics within the ongoing decolonization project. The book is a beautiful archive of Andean traditions and a powerful call to address urgent futures. The word Quañi in Aymara refers to a container that holds textiles, a pouch, a portable sewing bag. It's a metaphor for a bag that contains verses and ideas. KIRKI QHAñi is therefore in itself a bag of diverging moments and temporalities, a collection of innumerable voices, a container of Andean poetics. The book is divided in three sections. Sami Kirki, translated to Song of the Sacred Breaths. Taki, the Path. Utacha Kirki, the Song of the House. Each of the three sections is framed by an essay written by Elvira Espejo Ayca, and a selection of around 10 poems, songs in each of these three sections. The essays were written in Spanish, and Aeron and I translated them to English. The poems were written in Aymara, and Aeron and I also translated them to English. Elvira Espejo Ayca will read a poem from each of these three sections today. Salvador Pomar, also living in Bolivia, drew the lovely drawings in the pages, one drawing for each of the poems. The Spanish translation of the book, titled KIRKI QHAñi, Petaca de las Poéticas Andinas, was published by El Cuervo Editorial in La Paz, Bolivia in 2023. We thank them for their collaboration. Aeron and I wrote an introduction addressing the translation. Miguel Rocha Vivas, professor in the Department of Literature at the University Javariana in Bogota, Colombia, wrote an introduction for the book, and Max Jorge Hinderer Cruz wrote an introduction on the work and impact of Elvira Espejo Ayca's work. Max Jorge Hinderer Cruz is a Bolivian-German philosopher and doctor in philosophy from the Academia of Fine Arts in Vienna. He was academic director of the Independent Studies program at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Barcelona, artistic director of the Academy of the Arts of the World in Cologne, Germany, director of the National Museum in La Paz, Bolivia. He was program coordinator of Program for Autonomous Cultural Action in Sao Paulo. He was also co-curator of the exhibition and publication project Principio Potosí, the Potosí Principle, which was presented at Museo Reina Sofía in Madrid, Haus de Kulturer Welt in Berlin, National Museum of Art, and National Ethnography and Folklore Museum in La Paz. He's the author of Helio Itisica and Nabil de Almeida, a blog Experiments in Cosmococa Program in Progress, published by After All and MIT Press. In 2023, co-translated with Sabeth Bookman, and The Dead with Beauty, text from 2019 to 2021, published by Programa Cultura Política in La Paz in 2022. He is currently preparing the publication of the upcoming books, Subject to Justice, Center for Art and Research and Alliances in New York, coming to be published this year, and Before Beauty, Aesthetics and Anti-Colonialism, to be published by INCA Press and MIT next year in 2026. Max Jorge Hinderer Cruz has collaborated with Elvira Espejo Ayca in multiple projects, and they are valued colleagues. It's a pleasure to have Max Jorge Hinderer Cruz here with us today to introduce Elvira Espejo Ayca's work and her many contributions. INCA Press is also very pleased to be working with Max Jorge Hinderer Cruz, who will be publishing a book with us next year in 2026. A book will be a collection of articles, essays, and notes, and we printed this small pamphlet titled Decolonize Art as a preview, and it's also available at the book fair. Thank you, Max, for being here today.
Thank you very much, Alejandra, Aeron, the INCA Press team, and of course, Elvira, my long-term friend and collaborator. Thank you for having me and for thinking of me to participate in this presentation. And of course, thank you to everyone present in this book presentation now at the LA Book Fair. So what can I say? I would like to give a brief idea about similar to the introduction published in the book KIRKI QHAÑI, a brief idea of the impact of Elvira Espejo and the importance of her work. And to start with that, I would like to address the fact that if we present Elvira today and in this book as a poet, this is only one single aspect of the manifold virtues as an artist that characterize Elvira Espejo's work. Elvira works not only as a poet, but also as a visual artist. She has an academic formation in painting at the National Academy of Fine Arts in La Paz, but she's also a weaver, and she is a storyteller in the tradition of her Aliu. We heard Cacachaca in the south central Andes in the province of Oruro. She's also a musician, prolific musician. You can find songs of her on the internet if you look for Elvira Espejo Ayca. She has collaborated with some of the most incredible Bolivian musicians, We have like Álvaro Montenegro, for just to name one, or Nina Uma, the famous Bolivian Aymara rap artist. So Elvira has been around quite a lot in different fields. And the important thing is not to stress the fact that Elvira would be brilliant in each one of these forms of or expressions, but I think the important thing is that Elvira, for Elvira, the work in one and the other belong together. So it's not dividable; it's inseparable. The art of poetry, the art of weaving, the oral tradition, the Andean cosmovision of Aymara and Quechua people, the nations, the work of painting, everything belongs together. Elvira has also been present recently at the Biennial of Mercosur, which is still on show in Porto Alegre in Brazil, where, for example, you can see also video works of Elvira, which point at exactly this interstice, this coming together of sound. So the video, the audio visual of this video stresses the quality of sound. So you hear the spinning, as you can see in the back of Elvira's screen. You can have these the spindles with which you spin the cotton and the wool, and you spin them to threads. And so we learn with Elvira to hear the different sounds of the spindle while producing the garn, the threads of wool. And she produces this audiovisual video not only with mastery of how the image looks like, the visual, but also by telling us from the ancestral oral tradition of her aliu, of Cacachaca, about how to understand how the fingers collaborate with the wool and the thread and the sound it makes, and how to listen to the sound in order to do a good, to produce a good thread. So all these things come together, and I think the audiovisual video is a good example where all these things can be perceived as interwoven. So in that sense, I think it's important to understand that Elvira's importance lies exactly in the non-specialization, if you like, right, in terms of a division of labor. And this is crucial to understand because Elvira comes from a communitarian context in the community in this aliu. There is no such thing as a strict division of labor in where one person is only a poet or only a weaver, but in the communitarian handling, the works are always in reciprocity and in collaboration and as a community. So in this sense, I think it is important that Elvira herself gives us some examples of what this is like in the form of poetry, which in this book we see as a delivery of recollection of ancient songs brought to poetry by Elvira. So with no further ado, I would pass on to Elvira to give us some insights into her art, and I'm up for getting into dialogue afterwards for any questions further. So thank you very much.
Max, I'm going to speak quick next, short moment,
Of course.
and then we'll get to finally to Elvira. So I just wanted to say a few notes about the translation, because I mean, translation is always a problem when you go from one language to the next. It's basically impossible because it's not just about defining words. Computers can do that, you know, they can just move a word from one to the next, and it doesn't really work out very well because words contain cultural importance, and they contain layers of cultural importance and context. And so when we translating, we decided that there are too many problems to just simply make a smooth translation from one to the other. So we thought we would instead make a glossary. And so here we have glossary, Aymara, English, and this was a very simple way of using the book, therefore, not just an introduction to Elvira's work, but really to make an introduction into the context and into these beautiful moments, where basically thousands of years of development in different Ailu, which are different kind of family village units in the Andes. And so it's interesting because the process of translation of the book, the problem of translation in this book, it mirrors the problem of translation in the Andes itself, because there are at least dozens of languages, among others, Aymara, Quechua, Bare, Chacobo, Pukawara, Kule, Harakumbud, Kunzakani, Pakawara, Pukina, and more. There's many, many languages. And it's powerful because although there are fairly large disconnects between Ailus, and there's a lot of difference between the people in the Andes, including language, there's also a remarkable similarity. And the remarkable similarity, our theory, and I think we've read this in many contexts, but it's the reciprocal relations between people that is the basis and the formation of living. And this reciprocal relation that the society is organized by is a way of joining. So we have moments in history in which this difference has been joined, among other, the INCA, which created joining plurinational groups together. And the problem was, of course, language, but is through this book, we have this mnemonic device. So the language was carried through mnemonic devices, such as song and ritual. And that's where this book is not just a record of her grandmother's songs, but literally of maybe thousands of years of understanding how to build a house, how to take care of camelids like Lama, and how to perform these kind of reciprocal relations. So the translation, therefore, that Elvira was doing was a translation not just in language, but literally an oral biological archive into a book form. And Elvira's work at the museum is a translation from the oral, biological, and physical translations happening in the Ailu to a museum form. It's all translation, and it's the attempt not just to save it, but to have this potential of regrowth for the future. So this book and what Elvira is doing is a future-oriented exercise. It's a way of saying this is a culture that with 2.2 million speakers, and it's a way of moving forward. So the collaboration which is a part of the process. It's collaboration, which is part of Ailu, collaboration, which is part of the rituals that are documented in this book. We also can say this book itself was a collaboration between Elvira, Max, Adrian Alarcon, who another Aymara speaker, speaks German and English. So together, debating and having these kinds of interesting tension moments. Spanish, German, English, and I would say that these interesting disagreements indicate that Aymara is still a living, breathing language with many regional differences, and so we are happy to be able to contribute to this dialogue in one small way, and to bring this book out into the world, and to bring Elvira into our living room. Elvira.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y todas, o todas y todos. Muchísimas gracias por venir, por acompañarnos. Yo hoy estoy muy, muy contenta, muy, muy feliz y muy agradecida con las personas que realmente han pensado en esta traducción del libro. Y en ese sentido quisiera agradecer a Alejandra Salinas. Alejandra Salinas puso su fuerza mayor de de que el libro se traduzca y esta noticia me encantó. Y también quiero agradecer a Aeron, que ha estado igual siguiendo los dos. Han trabajado los dos, han venido a La Paz, a mí ha visitado, hemos estado trabajando juntos, discutiendo con un plato de ispi para conocernos un poco más y aprender de estas poéticas. También quiero agradecer a Max Hinderer Cruz por ese apoyo moral siempre para fortalecer estos pensamientos y eso nos ha ayudado a que nosotros lo trabajemos en conjunto y que tengamos esta producción que para mí es muy lindo, ¿no? Que se haya traducido al inglés y así lo puedan leer y lo puedan ver también en otros territorios. Yo quisiera leer tres poesías, lo voy a hacer en Aymara.
Let's translate.
¿Ya?
Vamos a traducir
Sorry.
Podemos traducir, Elvira, sí. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here today. Elvira Espejo Ayca would like to thank everyone who contributed to the book, including Aeron and I, and Max, who together we have worked in this book together, and we traveled to La Paz to meet with her, and we had lunch together, and we went in her office with throughout this translation, and we discussed all these points on the translation, and Agnes also was in La Paz. Yeah, she came too. And Elvira is going to read three poems from the book. Y yo lo traduzco, ¿verdad? Leo la traducción
Sí,
yo.
lees la traducción en inglés y yo voy a leer en Aymara, por favor.
¿Cuál es el primero?
La primera es Pukarsami, la primera del primer
Sí.
texto.
Listo.
Pukarsami. Bueno, voy a leer, dice así. Intitalay halanthipana, tupurayar sarañani. Intitalay halanthipana, pukararui sarañani. Warawaray willinokthipana, tupurayar irsuñani. Warawaray willinokthipana, pukararu irsuñani. Kunalaykuy irsuñani, samilayku irsuñani. Kunalaykuy irsuñani, uywirlaykuy irsuñani.
The translation is Breath of Pucara. When the sun sets, we go together to Pucaraya. When the sun sets, we go to Pucara. When the stars are spills across the sky, we will reach Pucaraya. When the stars are spilled across the sky, we will reach Pucara. To what will we rise together? We will rise by our breaths. To what we will rise together? We will rise for our guide. And then in the glossary it says, Tupuraya is a sacred protective hill.
a hill.
Bien. Ahora voy a leer la poesía Chuyumpi. Está en la página 78. Chuyumpi. Y dice así. Kaukiyukat antasta. Wayaway yaway chuyumpi. Hilalumat antasta. Wayaway chuyumpi. Kaukiyukat qoshtasta. Wayaway chuyumpi. Turumaykut qoshtasta. Wayaway chuyumpi. Kaukiyukat hiktasta. Wayaway chuyumpi. Hukchutallat hiktasta. Wayaway chuyumpi. Kunaka maysaranta. Wayaway chuyumpi. Kumpiriska maysaranta. Wayaway chuyumpi.
The translation is Greve. From where have you heard it? The breathing path of the Greve. From the high hill I heard. sacred male protector here that cares for the inhabitants of the area. It's a bird.
Grebe is a kind of duck.
Ahora voy a ir con la otra poesía. Está en la página 124. Inca. Incai. Y dice así, Kunaraki Hutaniji Incai. Tilantiru Hutaniji Incai. Kaukiranat Hutaniji Incai. Patjaranat Hutaniji Incai. Kunakula Hutaniji Incai. Wichukallaw Hutaniji Incai. Kaukiranat Hutaniji Incai. Tjaranat Hutaniji Incai. Kunakallaw Hutaniji Incai. Llaqllakallaw Hutaniji Incai. Kaukiranat Hutaniji Incai. Manjaranat Hutaniji Incai. Kaukiruray Hutaniji Incai. Taipiranar Hutaniji Incai. Kunaruray Hutaniji Incai. Machakmark Armiriu Hutaniji Incai.
And then translation is Inkai. What's coming, Inkai? The leader comes, Inkai. From where does it come, Inkai? From the highest part it comes, Inkai. Loaded with what does it come, Inkai? Loaded with a straw it comes, Inkai. Where does it come from, Inkai? From the highest part it comes, Inkai. Load of what is coming, Inkai? Load of good comes, Inkai. From where does it come, Inkai? From the lowest part it comes, Inkai. From where are you coming, Inkai? To the center is coming, Inkai. To what is coming, Inkai? To build a new town is coming, Inkai.
So, brief note on that poem, the Inkai, of course, is Inca, and this was one of the mnemonic devices that the Inca used to build. It's an architectural way of passing knowledge, and this was a song that embedded materials and timing and ways of building. And so when they discuss um, uh, um, the rocks and the straw, so embedded in the poem song are the materials that are necessary to build a house. And as we know from history, Inca architecture was remarkably uniform across a vast, vast territory that would be the equivalent of New York to Los Angeles. And it was through songs, rituals such as this one, that the knowledge of how to build houses and how to build certain structures was passed throughout, despite all the different languages involved. So we would like, we have a few minutes for thoughts or questions. It is,
Okay, we have taken 20,
yeah, so we have
20 minutes.
20 minutes or so.
If anyone has questions for Elvira.
In the meantime, I'll read also the dictionary, the glossary definition of chulumbi, which is the grebe bird. Chulumbi, waves in a lake. So this is the meaning in Aymara. Waves in a lake formed by the grebe. And so as a grebe bird was, the duck was on the lake, there'd be these swirls of water, and that was considered, the term was chulumbi. Also, it's a mythological Andean bird that poetically described these waves. Also in the long hair of the llama when the wind blows. So llama fur is very long, and when the wind would blow, and as if you've ever seen an image of the Andes or been there, the llama fur is blowing in this kind of pattern, and it's the same pattern. It was noticed, we don't know how long ago it was noticed, but long enough to make an actual word that
Yes. I hope she can hear me. Yeah, I just would like to know how she feels about getting the book to reach out so many people, and what that does to the Inca, or at least her her pueblo, and how she feels about um, just like any reciprocity that comes back to them from the book.
That's a good question.
Le pregunta qué le parece, cuál es el impacto de que el libro se distribuya fuera de Bolivia y que llegue a otros lugares, cómo cree que la relación virtual entre usted y las personas con las que escriben el libro, cómo cree que se está
Yo creo que esta relación de poder pasar fronteras es más que todo para entender diferentes culturas, ¿no? Algo que pone bien claro este libro es que la poética no se basa en la creatividad actual. La poética se basa en, como decir, en cantos orales de las comunidades indígenas que aún lo tienen en la memoria del pasado arqueológico. Y esta reconstrucción nos ayuda a entender, por ejemplo, cuando hablé de la poesía, bueno, puedes traducir y luego paso.
cree que she thinks it's a way to communicate between people across borders and to have an exchange across borders. And what she hopes that is understood is that poetry is not necessarily about a contemporary creative process, but it's about an archive and a tradition, in her case, from her ancestors.
Entonces, cuando hablamos, por ejemplo, esta poesía del Incai, es muy interesante porque nos transporta a la parte arqueológica, porque nos habla cómo una casa está construida a través de la materia prima orgánica, ¿no? La paja que viene de la altura, la madera que viene de las tierras bajas, ¿no? Y luego la piedra que viene del mismo lugar, ¿no? En este caso, cercano, y estas materias primas orgánicas, cómo se juntan como diferentes fuerzas para poder ser una casa y abrigar a la vida humana. Y eso nos hace un poco cuestionar, ¿no? Porque las casas orgánicas hoy en día es lo más importante para las comunidades porque las casas actuales no tienen estas materias orgánicas y no tiene ese forma, por ejemplo, de poder dialogar las materias primas orgánicas, ¿no? Entonces creo que es bien interesante para una autorreflexión de que no solo estamos pensando de construir por construir la casa, sino estamos leyendo cómo las materias primas viajan, en qué territorios están, y creo que esta memoria nos ubica la composición de cada materia prima que viene de diferentes lugares, ¿no?
In the case of the book, it talks, it recounts, it's an archive of how to build houses and also where the raw materials come from, where does the straw come from, where does the wood come from, where does the stone come from. So it's an
The straw comes from high, and the stone comes from the same spot. And the different materials are logically chosen based on what is possible and based on how the people from a long time ago figured out how to build these kinds of houses with thinking about the organic materials of what is there and organically how do they go together, which is different, Elvira said, different than um, what we have today. My interpretation is a kind of alienated sense of where the materials come from. We have no idea where that glass comes from. We have no idea where that wood comes from or that metal. We can suspect, we might be able to read a label, but in the end, it's a very clear relation between the landscape and the house
and the people.
and the people, of course.
Will, if anything,
No, I think that was pretty on point.
You have a question,
El
Elvira?
otro también de la arquitectura, cuando hablamos de la materia prima, ¿no? Que dice esta poética, automáticamente la arquitectura de la comunidad cumple dos roles importantes, ¿no? En el frío abriga, ¿no? Te calienta. Y en el calor te refresca. Entonces, las casas no necesitan de un aire acondicionador, ¿no? Y ellos ya pensaron como arquitectos integrando. Y la poética nos ayuda a entender esta estructura que el ser humano en muchos casos olvida y no toma, digamos, como por ejemplo estos pensamientos en el pasado, como se ha pensado del frío y del calor, que hoy no lo pensamos.
And
So,
no, you do it.
this point is really it's really powerful for us, and it's really it moves us to continue to move forward, to go backwards in time, because she notes that houses solve problems. If you're cold, she says how to put a coat on you, so the house keeps you warm, and when it's hot, it cools you off. And from a long time ago in the Andes, they figured out different technological ways of solving this problem without air conditioning or heating. And so the thickness of the stone would keep the house cool in the summer. And the way in which the houses are also incorporated by digging keeps it warm in the winter. And so they're very, very old technologies that have worked for thousands of years. They're very, very functional um, to keep warm and cool, to do the essentials that a house needs to do. And they've already figured it out thousands and thousands of years ago.
So this would be like indigenous technology that's relevant today as it was back then?
I would say maybe more relevant, but let's
Well,
ask
let's ask
Elvira.
Elvira.
No, I asked because, I live 9 miles south of Eaton Canyon, which had the fires. So they're in the process of rebuilding. I wonder if they knew about something like this, they might want to rebuild in a different way than what is being suggested.
El señor pregunta si estas tecnologías de construcción pueden ser aplicables ahora, porque él vive en una zona donde hubo incendios y están reconstruyendo y está pensando que igual se podrían incorporar algunas de estas tecnologías ancestrales a la construcción contemporánea.
Sí, evidentemente a la construcción contemporánea se puede integrarlo, ¿no? Y creo que incluso ayudaría al medio ambiente y no tanto a la contaminación de usar mucho plástico, ¿no? Creo que sería muy bueno reflexionar y tener esta coordinación o este encuentro de materias orgánicas, ¿no? Que equilibra el mundo. Creo que en ese sentido es muy particular la poesía porque nos ayuda como en aquellos tiempos ellos hablaban de estas materias primas que no solamente eran como materias primas, ¿no? Para obtenerlas, sino también como personas vivas que acompañan. Y por esa razón la materia orgánica viva, pues también tiene ese doble sensibilidad, ¿no? De proteger cuando el frío es muy frío, pues el adobe te calienta, ¿no? Y lo mismo pasa cuando es muy caliente, pues el adobe se refresca, ¿no? Entonces, creo que sería bastante interesante eso, poder trabajar en diferentes comunidades, no solamente en mi territorio, por supuesto que hay que ver en otros territorios también, según lo que es la dinámica, ¿no? Si llueve mucho, si llueve menos, hay mayor calor, menor calor. Creo que hay mucha posibilidad de poder generar nuevas dinámicas con toda esta estructura de la poética que nos ofrece a viajar y entender un poco más cercano, ¿no?
So yes, that again, because they figured out how to keep like the thicknesses or the type of stone, it's very functional for both cold and heat, and it's possible to apply, and it could be very important. In fact, in thinking about the
this work? No, no. Okay. Well, Elvira, I was wondering, why did you decide to write that book so like everyone gets to read it? But why did you decide to do that?
¿Por qué decidió escribir el libro?
Yo decidí escribir el libro más que todo para compartir con otros territorios, otras regiones y para la misma comunidad que esta memoria no se pierda, ¿no? No se olvide.
So it's both to share with others, but also for her community. So these traditions and this way of thinking and these rituals are not forgotten. You like that? Le gusta.
Other thoughts or questions?
Muchísimas gracias, Elvira y Max, por estar
Gracias. Quizás podemos leer una poesía más del Chiru Chiru.
aquí.
One more poem.
A ver, voy a buscar el Chiru Chiru en dónde está. Está en la página 32. 132, diré, perdón. Y dice así. Tapash, tapash, chiru chiru. Al turupineu tapachanta chiru chiru. Ailira hutanispa chiru chiru. Pakalirai hutanispa chiru chiru. Al turupineu tapachanta chiru chiru. Tapash, tapash, chiru chiru. Warangurupineu tapachanta chiru chiru. Ailirai hutanispa chiru chiru. Pakalirai hutanispa chiru chiru. Al turupineu tapachanta chiru chiru. Tapash, tapash, chiru chiru. Al turupineu tapachanta chiru chiru. Ailirai hutanispa chiru chiru. Pakalirai hutanispa chiru chiru. Al turupineu tapachanta chiru chiru.
The translation is
Build, build, cheater, cheater. Build, build, cheater, cheater. Certainly at the highest point, cheater, cheater. Watch out, the eagle comes, cheater, cheater. Watch out, the hawk comes, cheater, cheater. Certainly build at the highest point, cheater, cheater. Build, build, cheater, cheater. Certainly in the ravine part, cheater, cheater. Watch out, the eagle comes, cheater, cheater. Watch out, the hawk comes, cheater, cheater. Build at the highest point, cheater, cheater. Build, build, cheater, cheater. At the highest point, cheater, cheater. Watch out, the eagle comes, cheater, cheater. Watch out, the hawk comes, cheater, cheater. Build at the highest point, cheater, cheater.
And then in the glossary says chiru, a bird that constructs its house in the highest parts, built in a large round ball shape, the nest, in a way that the nest is so strong and well built it is inhabited by future generations of birds. So this is talking about housing. It makes a lot of sense, a nest that stays on and different birds can use.
The observation that people were observing very closely nature, and when something powerful was recorded, that technology, in this case a literal bird's nest, was then incorporated into building houses for people. So observation of nature so closely that it is then used to be useful for human beings, indicating a reciprocal relation with nature itself.
I would like to add something, please. Just wanted to say, since we're in this world of translations, I would like to add something German to it. Because it made me think a lot about the word poetry in German, which many people, Dichtung, which many people say would originate from the meaning of the word dicht, which is density, right? So the word poetry in its German origin is often referred to the density. And I think if there's something true about this German origin of the word of poetry, the name for poetry, then we can find it, certainly we can find it here in these poems of Elvira, which are, you know, such impressive, dense condensation, you know, poetic condensation, rhythmization of ancestral knowledge, of engineering technology. So to actually wrap our heads around that it is possible to condense in a song, in a poem, you know, in a rhythmic transportation of knowledge, these kind of technological secrets that might be, you know, of great use for us to actually understand. I think this is just so beautiful, you know, the dimensions which are implied in this, you know, rhythmic delivery of songs. It's you know, it's just astonishing. Every time I'm, you know, blown away. So thank you very much for sharing this.
One more comment, if you don't mind.
Humans are still looking at animals and kind of making inventions that are sort of like based on that. And like a long time ago, humans were like, they were seeing birds flying and they were like, well, what if people do that? And then boom, invention of the airplane. Now to fly, like the bird.
So we need to look at nature again in a better way.
Need to collaborate with nature, right?
Right. Like someone might be able to make a spiky ball, like a porcupine. Spiky ball weapon.
Muchas gracias, Elvira. Thank you so much.
Gracias, gracias. Abrazos para todos.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias. Thank you.